Well, let's look ahead to Derby County's first EFL Cup game of the season. Derby County face up against Chesterfield, the new arrivals to League Two, and it's going to be a very, very interesting game. Derby County faced Chesterfield within pre-season this year, and they fell to defeat, a 4-0 defeat, not just any defeat. So it was a disappointing day for Derby County. In this video, we're going to discuss everything about what could happen in this Chesterfield game. I'm going to discuss things which I think Paul Warne needs to do heading into that game against Chesterfield to prepare for the weekend versus Middlebrough. Now, before we do get into that, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below to stay tuned for all of my latest Derby County and EFL Championship and League One content, which is coming your way. The League One review video will be out later on today, so make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell to stay tuned for when that drops. Now, looking ahead to this game, Derby County will be looking to bounce back from a big defeat. Derby County lost 4-2 to Blackburn Rovers, and if you haven't already checked out my match review, I would go and do so. Some people believe I've gone a bit over the top, I've overreacted a little bit, and people are entitled to that opinion. But for me, I think it was a very, very disappointing display that day, and I think Derby County have a lot to do if they want to win games in the Championship this season. Now, I think this could be a start for Derby County to pick up a result versus Chesterfield in round one of the EFL Cup. I think it could boost confidence a little bit and help with the players. Now, obviously, we're going to mainly look at Derby in this video, and obviously there's the 4-2 defeat from Blackburn Rovers, and Chesterfield drew 1-1 versus Swindon in their return to League Two. Now, Derby County are obviously missing some players. We've lost Jake Rooney. It says it's a cruciate ligament injury, but I'm led to believe it's not a cruciate ligament injury and he's only out for 4 months. But we could be told differently by Paul Warne in the press heading into the Chesterfield game. Now, Corey Blackett-Taylor and Joe Ward missed out fitness issues. We know the issue with Joe Ward, soreness on his knee and stuff like that, and swelling and stuff. So that's going to be an interesting one because I would like to see him. I think he'd offer some extra quality off the bench. You then obviously look at Corey Blackett-Taylor and you think if you go to the Blackburn game and you look at the options that we had to bring off the bench, let's just go into that. If we then go on to the lineups, and obviously you look at the team we had. Now, I don't think that team initially is terrible, but if you look at our bench, attacking wise, what do we have apart from Dajaune Brown and James Collins? Now, I would have brought Dajaune Brown on during the game, but obviously Paul Warne didn't choose to do that. Now, having Corey Blackett-Taylor on that bench would add another attacking element. Now, I do think that big questions will be asked if we lose this game. Now, if we do obviously look at Derby County and we look at the squad, obviously there is still signings to come. Zetterstrom is set to sign on Friday, but we'll have to wait and see for that to all go through because obviously, as you know, until he's in a Derby shirt, until he's registered, who knows what's happening. Now, obviously, I think in that last game, I think Erin Cashin really had a handful and really struggled in the Blackburn Rovers game. I think it was a difficult one for him. I think he's had a difficult pre-season, and I don't know if it's one of those where he's got to play through it or it'll be a game where Paul Warne experiments with the team and maybe does he play Forsyth as the left centre half? Does he play Sonny Bradley in that back four? Does he make it a back five? These are all questions which need to be asked. I do think heading into this game we're probably likely to see Ibu Adams get on the pitch. Obviously he did come on the other night and he had a bit of a knock late on when he took a shot, but is he okay? Who knows? We'll find out for the game. Now, obviously, Tyrese Fawn will probably get some minutes. Liam Thompson probably will get some minutes as well. But obviously, you look at the forward line, and that's where you can see. But if you look at this forward line, that's where you can see where the big problems are for Derby. Jerry Yates isn't available until we play Watford. Washington wasn't really good enough for League One. Collins was good enough for League One, but maybe not Championship level. And you look at it and you think Derby County need more options. Now, I'm hoping at some point, when you watch this video, Alan Nixon's story will be out on Derby County, which I mentioned in yesterday's video. And I think Derby need more in a striker department, in midfield, in defence. We need more. And I think everybody's like completely like honest with that. I think everybody knows that's the case. Now, if we go and look at Chesterfield, they do have some really good players, and obviously Paul Cork is a brilliant manager. Now, you look at like Shea Dunkley, incredible player in my opinion. I think he's really, really good. You then obviously go into the midfield. You've got Tom Naylor, who's a former Derby County player. And then obviously you go to the forward line. You've got Will Grigg, Michael Jacobs, Armando Dobra. You've got some really, really good players in this squad. Now, I do think it's going to be a really difficult game for Derby. Now, I did say in my predictions video that Derby would win. I think I said 2-1 in that game. Now, the big question is going to be for this: can Derby not have back-to-back defeats? And I think that's the important thing for this season, is making sure we do not lose back-to-back games. Now, we can't lose back-to-back in a sense of 2 games in a row. We also can't lose back-to-back league games. So for me, it's really important that we pick up a result versus Middlesbrough on Saturday. And this is where I'm going to get into my team selection and sort of explain some reasons for why I make certain decisions. Now, this is the team that I'm selecting for Derby County versus Chesterfield. Now, the big question marks for me are we going to stay with the back 4? I personally think this could be a 2-sitters situation for Derby, and I do think there's a possibility where Ozo and Adams play together. But if we stick with the principles of what we started with versus Blackburn, this is what I think we'll do. I do think Vickers obviously has to continue in goal. I can't see Luthra taking that position. Now, obviously, if you look at the back 4, the changes I've made have brought in Niambi for Wilson and Forsyth for Elder. I don't necessarily think Elder or Wilson had bad games. I thought they both got caught out at moments within the performances against Blackburn. And I think this time, Derby need to go defensively solid before they start adding attacking pieces, in my opinion. And I think adding in Niambi and Forsyth is the perfect thing to do for that. And it's also good to test that for an upcoming fixture versus Middlesbrough. Now, in the midfield, I've added in Ibu Adams for David Ozo. I don't think Ozo was awful during Blackburn. I don't think he had his best game, and I think he'd admit that. So for me, I think adding in Ibu Adams into that midfield, a bit more experience, a bit more football nous is probably the best way to put it. With his, obviously, his career has been a lot longer than David Ozo's. And then in the front 3, I've taken out Tom Barkhazen and put in Dajaune Brown. Now, I personally think Dajaune Brown has to play football. He's got to play. He's got to be given an opportunity. Now, do I think Paul Warne is going to do that? I'm not entirely sure. But I think he should get the opportunity. And I think playing Chesterfield is a perfect opportunity, not just to showcase his skill set for League 2 clubs who could potentially be in for him by the end of this window, but also give him an opportunity to prove that he deserves to be in and around the first team here at Derby County. Now, there is a couple of other changes I could make. Now, for me, I wasn't opposed to Wilson staying on the pitch. Now, if you go back to my Blackburn Rovers preview, I had him in that right wing position where Jackson currently is, and I think there's a possibility where Wilson and Niambi could form a really good partnership on that right hand side, where it turns into a back 5 at times when we're out of possession, where Mendes-Lang can have that sort of free role, or Jackson can sort of play as more of a Jackson wouldn't be on the pitch, but Wilson can sort of play as that sort of like right wing back out of possession, but right winger in possession. Now, because he does that anyway, he's more of an attacking minded defender, so it sort of wouldn't really change what he already does, apart from he started a little bit higher, so he'd be in those dangerous positions. Now, obviously, doubts for this upcoming game are Corey Blackett-Taylor and Joe Ward. Hopefully we'll hear from Paul Warne probably tomorrow, really, but it might end up being Richie Barker or Matt Hamshaw who take the press. So it'll either be today or tomorrow we hear from them, where maybe Blackett-Taylor and Ward are available. If Blackett-Taylor's available, I'd want him on the bench to play some minutes. Same with Joe Ward, because I think they had a different attacking element to our squad. Now, obviously, if we are going to play Wilson on the right, like I was talking about, Mendez-Laing would sort of have that free role where he can come narrow, go out, come narrow, come out, which sort of means Forsyth can push and drop as necessary, rather than it being a consistent getting in at the back post. Mendez-Laing can sort of take that rule and responsibility away from him in a sense. So it's obviously going to be very interesting, and you can obviously let me know your team predictions down in the comments. Obviously, there may be some more changes, like the likes of Tyrese Warne may get onto the pitch and be a starter. Liam Thompson, maybe Sonny Bradley, and I know there will be a discussion around James Collins and Dajaune Brown, but for me, this is the team I would start with. Now, obviously, there is sort of a lot to discuss when it comes to this performance, because Derby County have a lot to do heading into this Chesterfield game, because they've got to prepare themselves for the weekend versus Middlesbrough. Now, I personally think that this is a perfect opportunity to give Dajaune Brown a chance to shine, to show that he is capable of performing at championship level. Now, he obviously hasn't been given the opportunities really in League One. He's only really played trophy games, and he's never. I don't think he's actually started a game under Paul Warne. I could be wrong, but I don't think he has. And it's one of them for me where if we don't give him a chance from the start to show what he's capable of from minute one, then we've got to give him opportunities off the bench. And I think we're sort of in a position where Paul Warne isn't going to be willing to make those decisions during league games. So I think it's time to give Dajaune Brown 90 minutes in the Cup. Now, you can obviously move around the way the rest of the other players work around him. Now, obviously, Jackson could come narrow and play with him. Kenzo could play sitting in behind him. Or you could play him up front with James Collins or with Caden Jackson, or someone a lot of that ilk. So it's one of those for me where there's got to be a lot of development with this squad, because we certainly aren't the finished article, certainly not after that performance versus Blackburn Rovers the other night, and that's something which Derby County need to look into as quickly as possible. Now, obviously, as you're watching this, I've probably mentioned earlier in this video and in yesterday's video the story from Alan Nixon, which is set to drop on Sunday. So if you haven't seen that already, go and check on my Twitter. It'll be going across on the ticker down below. Go and check my Twitter. I'll have tweeted what the story is, what it's regarding, and there may be a video about it today or tomorrow if it's that important. So make sure you go and follow me over on Twitter, follow me over on Instagram to see what I'm doing over on there. Make sure you've hit that subscribe button as well, and I'll catch you in my next video. Make sure to go and find me on TikTok, pictured here, and Twitter, pictured here. These are the places where I'll keep you all up to date with all my upcoming videos and my thoughts and feelings around the Formula 1 and football weekend.